Josie and the PussyCats is an animated television series produced by Hanna-Barbera that aired on the CBS network from 1970 to 1971. This series showcases an all-girl pop rock group that would tour a variety of usually foreign and exotic locales. The band members include the red-headed lead singer, guitarist, Josie McCoy, the drummer, Melody Valentine, a stereotypical giggly blonde goofball, and jack-of-all-trades Valerie Brown on the tambourine.
Foiled by a bunch of pussycats.
The PussyCats' accompanying entourage consists of group leader and Josie's boyfriend, Alan M., spineless Shylock of a band manager, Alexander Cabot III, along with his catty shrew of a sister, Alexandra, and her lifesaver of a cat, Sebastian. Typically, the PussyCats and their entourage were recording music and performing gigs in different parts of the world when, for some reason or another, they would get caught up in zany adventures, crazy spy capers, and mysteries.
Josie, make beautiful music. As you say, groovy.
More like super-duper groovy.
Josie and the PussyCats were created by Dan DeCarlo and first appear within the pages of Josie and the PussyCats issue 45 in the year 1969. Due to the success of the Archie show in both television and music, Hanna-Barbera came to Archie Comics seeking out a similar property which they hoped would have the same success. Archie Comics then looked to retool the concept of their gender-bending Archie clone, She's Josie.
What's this all about? I demand an explanation.
Both Josie and Melody make their initial appearances inside the pages of the story titled Tongue Twister in Archie, Pals and Gals issue 23 around the end of the year 1962. Reminiscent of Spider-Man's Spider Sense tingling, in the cartoon, when the group found themselves facing danger, which was pretty much every episode, Melody's ears would wiggle.
My ears are twitching the danger signal a mile a minute, and they need their beauty sleep.
The third character in the original trio of friends was the bright and studious Pepper, but she was eventually replaced by Valerie Smith in the pages of Josie and the PussyCats 45. On the television series, the replacement of Pepper with Valerie had little to no effect on the brainy, fixer-up archetype that the character serves. Maybe all Valerie does in the band is smack a tambourine around, but when the group was out and about on their adventures, she was like their MacGyver or Velma Tech Guru, to continue the Scooby-Doo analogy, making crazy contraptions to get them out of incarceration, performing makeshift lab chemistry, or taking over flying a plane from a momentarily disabled pilot.
Valerie, grab the controls.
Roger. Wow, how to learn to fly in one uneasy lesson.
By 1963, Josie receives her own self-titled comic book, She's Josie, where she was the Archie-type character in a love triangle between her two suitors, sweet boy-next-door Albert and rich snob Alexander III. Albert, much like Pepper, was ultimately replaced by Alan M. as a boyfriend in later comics. I get the idea if Pepper and Albert were DC Comics characters, they'd have shown up in Grant Morrison's Animal Man run when he does the world tour in the limbo of forgotten characters. Interestingly enough, Alexander Cabot III, who first appears in She's Josie issue number 1, probably had his appearance altered over the years in the comics so he wouldn't appear to look so much like Reggie Mantle. But in the eventual translation to the series, Alex ended up looking like a Shaggy clone from Scooby-Doo anyway.
Can you beat that?
It doesn't help that Casey Kasem, the voice of Shaggy, brought Alexander to life on the show either. In fact, the character designs for both Josie and her boyfriend Alan M. look a whole lot like Daphne and Fred from Scooby-Doo as well, with her red hair and purple blouse along with his red ascot, never mind the whole meddling kids bit. Me, I chalk it up to Scooby-Doo returning the favor the Archie show did it by inspiring their series in the first place.
Who were you expecting? Scooby-Doo?
Alexander's sister, who serves as a jealous rival to Josie for the affections of the buff Alan M., initially appears in She's Josie issue number 8 in 1964, and as part of the upcoming television retrofit, has a white streak added to her hair, and her pet Sebastian the cat are introduced inside the pages of, by this point, the renamed Josie issue 43 by 1969.
Why do these things always happen to me?
The aforementioned Alan M. is introduced within the pages of Josie issue 42 in the year 1969.
cool, gals. We'll get you out of this.
In the comics, Sebastian is supposed to be a Cabot family ancestor who consorted with witches and was reincarnated as Alexandra's pet cat. Similar in concept to Sabrina the Teenage Witch, when holding the cat in her arms, Alexandra can cast magic spells. For some reason, when folks would snap their fingers, this would reverse the effects of the spell and pretty much made her abilities fleeting, to say the least. This aspect of the character wasn't explored in the television series, but Sebastian did have a fantastic knack for getting the kids out of all kinds of trouble they'd find themselves caught up in. If the kitty cat's laugh seems familiar to you, you're not the only one, because Sebastian has the exact same laugh as Muttley from Hanna-Barbera's Wacky Races, of which both voices were supplied by Don Messick. I know they're trying to paint Sebastian as this nasty cat, but here he's going underwater with nothing but a fishbowl on his head to free these guys. I mean, think about it. A cat submerged in water with nothing on his head but a fishbowl so he can free you from imprisonment is nothing short of extreme loyalty to me. He may as well be a tank the knees sticking his hand in salt water to save his human partner. I think if it wasn't for that cat, then the PussyCats would have been killed a long time ago by villains such as the Shadow. This, of course, is not to be confused with the pulp hero of the same name. Melody may be a ditz, but even she knows who the Shadow is.
The Shadow? Is that the guy who used to be on radio?
Also, take a look at this guy called the Laser, who Wolverine stole his hairdo from. And the Serpent, who was what might happen if the Toyman and Fu Manchu performed a Dragon Ball Z fusion. Despite their goofball appearances, these guys are not playing around.
I have no intention of keeping you prisoner.
Hey, he isn't such a bad guy after all.
Dump them over the side into a volcano!
This is also an interesting departure in terms of consequence from Scooby-Doo, and is much more like Johnny Quest in regards to the fact that all of these nefarious villains who probably have full-time memberships with a guild of calamitous intent are really out to kill Josie and the PussyCats, or as they put it,
You are intruders and must be disposed of.
kinda reminds me of...
Maybe you won't be such a disappointment in the next dimension.
And I just can't shake the feeling that when we find out what's wrong with me, it's going to lead to my destruction.
Also, the way the songs were implemented on this television series differed greatly from its precursor, The Archie Show. Instead of static music videos with related imagery, the songs were usually incorporated into a final action-packed chase scene with the bad guys of the episode.
Golly, I'm flying!
While most of the group has an archetypical Scooby-Doo counterpart, the two that really don't are Alexandra and Melody, and they kind of remind me of Lucy and Sally from Charles Schultz Peanuts comic strip. Alexandra is very bossy like Lucy and part of a brother-sister duo, and pines in vain over Alan M. the very same way that Lucy will dote on pianist Schroeder.
Oh, brother. Now I've heard everything.
Melody has that innocence and naivete about her that when your brain is already thinking about the Peanuts cast of characters, you can't help but continue the association with Charlie Brown's little sister, Sally.
For all we know, we could be headed for oblivion.
I've never been to Oblivion. It sounds like a groovy place.
Proceed on your way to oblivion.
You know, Josie, for being the title character, doesn't really do much on this show, does she? I mean, you got everybody else pretty well established but her. Alan M. is the leader type, like Freddy on Scooby-Doo. Alex plays the shady chicken. Alexandra is the catty and jealous shrew. The naive Melody, speaking in non sequitur all the time. The yes we can Valerie, and regular kitty cat escape artist Sebastian. And then all Josie does is just kind of hang on to Alan, and she's the lead singer, and that's kind of it. Maybe the writers of the show felt the same way about Josie that Alexandra did.
Boy, are you a dumb redhead.
Josie and the PussyCats had a few episodes, such as Strange Moon over Miami, where half the gang flew around in a rocket ship, and the Jumpin' Jupiter affair, where the group exposes a criminal scam, Scooby-Doo style, and reveals the aliens terrorizing local villagers to be nothing but a hoax in order to plunder their diamond mines. These episodes probably laid the groundwork for the change of setting to outer space in the year following its debut.
You have to remember she just returned from her trip to outer space.
I really do envy her. I'd love to take a trip to outer space, even just one time.
Also, is it just me, or do Dr. Strange Moon's henchmen remind you of the Saw Viper from G.I. Joe?
I think I love you too.
This is what you call a prehistoric rock-in.
Some say that the episode Plateau of the Apes plot rides on the popularity of the Planet of the Apes film series. But since it involves a mad scientist who turns human beings into apes, it made me think more of the crossover JL Ape and the Savage Land more than anything else.
Shut up, you freak! Julius, you... I said shut up!
So, eventually, the group went on to their follow-up series titled Josie and the PussyCats in Outer Space. They actually met and teamed up with their missing link animated ancestors in the 1973 episode of the new Scooby-Doo movies, The Haunted Showboat, and went on to have their very own feature film from Universal Pictures and Metro-Goldwyn-Mayer in the year 2001.
Sorry, show's over.
Just like a movie star, you're sure looking good. Fancy old town friends and brand new cars will take you far. But the boy I used to know is where I wanna go. I know you've come a long way, baby. You're not the boy I used to know. But if you want me for your lady, you still got a way to go. You still got a way to go. You still got a way to go.
Who were you expecting? Scooby-Doo?